G'day everyone, I'd like to chat about windage trays and crank scrapers. Something I've seen on a lot of engines built these days. And so what we have here is a crank scraper. Now this seems to be the trend of most builders these days, to run a crank scraper like this. And the way it works is it sits in the sump just at sort of level or just below the bottom of the crank like this. As the crank rotates, the scraper sort of scrapes off all the excessive amounts of oil and keeps it in the sump. So this sounds good in theory. However, this is an older engine. It's an M20 BMW and it doesn't have bore squirters. So there's nothing in the bore that's adding oil to the piston or bores other than what's splashing off the crank. And my theory is that by adding a crank scraper, we're actually possibly removing too much oil from the crank, and this is leading to sort of excessive and premature bore and piston wear, which is something I have experienced on this engine, and I have also seen and heard reports of similar problems with other engines too. So I'm in the process of removing the scraper, and I'll be adding a windage tray. Now a windage tray looks more like this. It sits in the sump about like that. Now these little slots allow all the oil to come out, while the shape of the tray keeps all the wind and turbulence all tucked up in a nice little ball in there, and obviously allows a lot more spray to get up on the bores. And the shape of the windage tray also helps with the drag of the wind on the crank by not allowing it to circulate down into the sump so much. So my theory is this will help to keep more oil in the bore and hopefully keep the engine life up at a more acceptable level. Now another little thing I've noticed, a lot of conrod manufacturers, especially all your expensive and top quality ones like CP, they have a little slot in the conrod like this. These particular ones didn't come with a slot, so I have set up my milling cutter with a little ball end cutter on it, and we have milled slots in it. Some conrods will have two. I've decided just to put one. Other brands I've seen have just one slot. So what this does, this acts a bit like a poor man's crank oil squirter, where as the crank is rotating, the oil coming off the journal will come out this little hole here, and it will get flung up under the piston and onto the bores. So I think between the little extra slot there to squirt the oil and the windage tray, we should have no more problems of early bore wear or sort of starvation of oil on the bores. Another little clue I've noticed is that I've never seen any OEM manufacturers with anything that resembles a crank scraper. However, lots, or possibly even most, modern OEM engines I've looked at have something that resembles a windage tray. So I think there's a little bit of a clue to which one is better. And look, I'd really like to hear from anyone, hear your thoughts, especially if anyone has any experience or ideally any sort of data or done any sort of testing on these sort of things. I'd really love to hear from you. These are just my theories. So hit us up in the comments, and thanks for watching.